A very good morning to all of you. Thank you for taking time to join today's ASTOM session. My name is Manoj Sringarpure, and along with me, we have our distinguished speaker, Russ Lowenthal, and my colleague, Vasishta, and we are part of Oracle Database Security Product Management team. Today is a special session on Oracle Database Security as we close out 2025 and look forward. Typically, right, what we see is as AI is becoming mainstream, particularly generative AI, and advancements in quantum computing emerge. So it's very important that everyone, review their existing practices and consider, how they can strengthen their security practices to address new challenges. So today, Russ will talk about the capabilities we released in 2025 and what's in store in 2026, especially when we are releasing Oracle AI Database 26 AI. So those of you who know ASTOM or new to ASTOM, it's a direct channel to interact with the Database Security Product Management team. This session is open for everyone. We'll make product announcement, upcoming events. You can ask a question which is not part of this topic. This will be done every third Wednesday at 10 a.m. India time. And in case you want to go and view previous sessions, you can just check our previous record. The slide and this would be available to you on GitHub, so you can go to this and view the ASTOM slides plus anything we share, and including the videos. So just like your Oracle database security customers, you would be aware we release quarterly patches, and the next one is around to be released on 20th Jan. The patch program 888.1, 555.1, it is highly recommended you review this and apply these patches on a regular basis. All critical patches, security alerts, you can subscribe to that using the security alerts. As you're upgrading, you can take advantage of migrate block to understand what works, what might break when you're doing this patches and upgrades. With that, let me hand it over to Russ and start this today's session. Thank you.
Wait, I thought you weren't going to show that one. Oh, well. Hi, everyone. My name is Russ Lowenthal. I have the honor to work with Manoj and a whole host of other product managers on database security. And I don't normally get to do these sessions, so Manoj, thank you for letting me join this one. It's really nice to for those of us in product management, it's really nice to get a chance to do something like that because there's so much that happened this year. And I know the year is not over yet, but realistically, we don't have a lot of new stuff coming out between now and the end of the calendar year. But we certainly did do a lot as the year went on. So let's start with the first big thing. And really, I guess probably the biggest new thing in 2025 is Oracle AI Database 26 AI, which we announced at AI World in October in Las Vegas in the United States. But what happened was when you applied the October release update to a 23 AI database, that 23 AI database switched its version number from 23.9 to 23.26.0. And with that, it became Oracle AI Database 26 AI. But that was one thing that happened. But there was another thing that happened just a couple of weeks ago on December 6th, and that was a small change to a MOS node. We used to look for this MOS node under 742.060.1, but with the new MyOracle support, you would find it as pnews 1360. And this is one that I use frequently. And if you look way, way down, when it was initially announced, you found this buried in table 2, about halfway down the note. There was just one line that was changed, and it said, oh, we're going to go ahead and release Oracle AI Database 26 AI for use on Linux servers, commodity servers, so you don't have to have Exadata, you don't have to have the Oracle Database Appliance, starting with the January release update. And later in the year, we'll release it on Windows, we'll release it on AIX. We haven't announced the precise release update yet, but you can figure those are coming fairly soon. So a nice little holiday present for us. Like I said, this was buried way down deep in the note. On Monday the 8th, a bunch of us complained because it was so subtle. You had to really look to find it. And so we put a little banner higher up that said, new Oracle AI database 26 AI is going to be released on premises. But really a nice thing. For those of you who aren't on Exadata or who are not running in OCI, what that means is all of a sudden those features that were introduced a couple of years ago when we released 23 AI suddenly become features that you can take advantage of. And so I'm going to use that as an excuse to real briefly review a couple of the ones that I think are the most interesting. And when we released what we then called 23 AI, the biggest new security feature was SQL Firewall. And SQL Firewall is built into the Oracle database, and it basically does two things. It looks at incoming connections and it checks the host name that's coming in, the IP address, the program name that's being run, the database user, the operating system user, and you can use SQL Firewall rules to control, is that connection allowed to proceed or is it not? And if a connection doesn't meet your rules for the context of the connection, then you can reject it and kind of block that user out. And the idea was we're trying to fight against stolen login credentials. The other thing that SQL Firewall does is it examines incoming SQL and it applies an allow list to that incoming SQL. And if you have a connection that suddenly starts behaving differently, issuing SQL that the database has never seen before, then you can either log an alert on that or you can block it altogether. And they're what we're targeting is SQL injection. Now, those two capabilities probably sound suspiciously familiar to those of you who are using Audit Vault and Database Firewall, because Audit Vault and Database Firewall does those two things. There's slight differences in how they're implemented. The database firewall part of Audit Vault and Database Firewall sits off of the database server and you have to route network traffic to it. SQL Firewall sits inside the database, and so it can't be bypassed, and that's an important thing. Another difference is database firewall is heterogeneous. It works with just most of the major relational databases that are out there. SQL Firewall, only Oracle database, and not only Oracle database, but only Oracle AI database 26 AI. So even if you're on 19C, SQL Firewall doesn't do anything for you. But we thought it was important to build SQL Firewall into the database for a couple of reasons. One of those is it's inside the database. You can't just bypass it by going around the firewall. And with the database firewall, if you didn't route traffic properly, if you left a path for an attacker to get around it, they could just circumvent the database firewall. The other one's a little bit more subtle. Database firewall, because it operates outside of the database, only knows what it's able to glean from the SQL statement that was issued. SQL Firewall, because it's inside the database, is able to look at what's going on inside the database. What that means is with database firewall, if someone says select star from employees, that is a different command from select star from imp, even though employees might just be a synonym for imp. SQL Firewall knows about things like synonyms, and so you can't work around the protections that easily. We do intend to continue maintaining both database firewall and SQL Firewall because we think it will be a while before everyone has transitioned to 26 AI. And let's face it, 26 SQL Firewall only for Oracle database. Database firewall, there's still a lot of people out there that are running MySQL and SQL Server and other databases. So we want to serve that market as well. Now, you'll be even gladder to know that SQL Firewall is included with your Audit Vault and Database Firewall license. So it's not an extra cost to you. If you have Audit Vault and Database Firewall, this is another component of it. And remember I said it does two things. It looks at incoming connections and the IP addresses and the OS username. That may sound a lot like Database Vault to you, and it is a lot like Database Vault. And so we've also included SQL Firewall with Database Vault. And remember, Database Vault is built into almost all of the Oracle Database Cloud services. It's easier to say what it's not built into, which is Standard Edition and Base Database Enterprise Edition, than to say which one it is. The user interface for SQL Firewall is built into both Audit Vault and DataSafe. So again, once January release update hits and you've begun to update to 26 AI, this is one feature that I think you're really going to enjoy. Other things that we did in 23 AI that are now in 26 AI. We did OCI IAM integration. If you're running in the Oracle Cloud, you can authenticate your users through OCI IAM. If you happen to be using Azure AD, which Microsoft renamed to Entra ID after we released the feature, then you can use that to authenticate to the database. Those two features were so popular they were backported to 19C. Not backported to 19C, and still important, is in 26 AI, maximum password length has been modified from 30 bytes to 1024 bytes. We wish everyone would stop using passwords and move to stronger authentication, but the reality is people are going to be on passwords for a long time, kind of the lowest common denominator. And so you can have longer passwords, and that's a good thing. From an authorization standpoint, if you haven't already seen this feature, one of the most popular features in 26 AI is a simple one. Prior to 26 AI, you could grant privileges at the database object level, like select from employees or select from customers, or whatever our table name or view name was, or you could grant them at the system level. Grant select any table or grant update any table to a user. New in 26 AI is the ability to scope system privileges to the schema level. So you can grant select any table on schema HR to whoever the username is. What that means is if you have a dynamic schema where objects are being added and removed and names are changing, things like that, you have a very easy way to give an application account or a power user access to the entire schema without having to go back and revisit those every time the schema changes. Kind of a nice thing. We also added in the capability to have read-only users. And this is another common use case. People have been creating read-only users for the database for a while, but before you had to be very careful when you created your read-only user not to give them any insert, update, or delete privileges. Now you can have a read-only user. It doesn't matter what their privileges are, what you've granted to them. All they're going to do is be able to select or read. There's so many times there's a subtle distinction here. You can also alter a read-only user to be read-write, at which point their DML privileges become active. They can do insert, update, or delete. Then you alter them back to read-only, and they're back to only being able to do selects and reads. The advantage there is, suppose you have a power user who under most circumstances only does read, but every now and then you're going to let that user do read-write operations. Database supports that kind of work schedule. Okay. One of the big things we did about midway through the 23 AI life frame is we made a change to data redaction. And we did this in 23.6. So technically that was a 2024 feature, but actually 23.6 came out kind of at the very end. I think it was December 22nd, if I remember right, last year. So I'm going to count it as a 2025 new feature, even though it was a 2024 feature. And really what we've done here is we've taken a feature that's been around, oh gosh, I think we introduced this in Oracle 12 and maybe backported it to 11.2. I think that's it. I'd have to go check. But when we first introduced this, it was very limited. It wouldn't work with queries that used select distinct or group bys in there. It couldn't work with any of the aggregation functions like sum or count or anything like that. It was very, very limited. This revisit to the feature that we did in 26 AI allows you to do most SQL operations with data redaction. When we did this, when we made this change to data redaction, obviously the people who were using redaction picked up quite a bit because it's really made it a more useful feature. And we started seeing one challenge with how people were using it and people not really understanding what data redaction does and what it's for. So I want to point that out to you here in this session. Data redaction is designed to block the wholesale exportation or exfiltration of data from the database. It's designed to work with read-only static pages like dashboards and such like that. Data redaction does provide some protection against ad hoc SQL, someone who comes in and can just run SQL commands, but it doesn't provide protection against someone who infers data through that ad hoc SQL. What I mean by that is, suppose you're into the Oracle employee database and you're trying to find out how much I make a year. It's not much, trust me. So you say, I'm going to select name from employee database where salary is greater than $2 a year. And sure enough, Russ's name pops up. Now, if you select the salary, you can't see it because redaction is going to protect against that. But that where clause still works. Then you're going to say, I'm going to select name from Oracle database where salary is greater than $15 a year. And oddly enough, Russ's name's not on there. And you kind of work your way down till you find out that I make $3.16 a year or whatever I actually make. That type of attack where you are inferring the actual value of the column by repeated SQL. You never see the value, but you're able to infer what it is. And it's a surprisingly few number of SQL statements to get to just about anything, is one that redaction can't protect against. So keep the use cases in mind. It's really good against the use case of someone's going to get in and they're going to hook up Excel to the database as a data source and dump an entire table into a spreadsheet. We don't want all the credit card numbers or the salaries or the birth dates or all that personal information showing up in that spreadsheet. Redaction gives you a really good way to combat that. Another change we did in 26 AI is we changed transparent data encryption. And we made two changes to it. One is we changed the default for column encryption to be AES 256 instead of what it was, which was AES 128. We changed the default encryption algorithm for column level encryption to be AES 256 instead of what it used to be, which is AES 192. We also changed the mode that we're operating AES in. Prior to 26 AI or 23 AI, tablespace encryption used cipher feedback mode. In 26 AI, we now use ciphertext stealing. And despite the name, ciphertext stealing is considered to be cryptographically more secure than cipher feedback mode. Column mode used to be cipher block chaining mode, and we changed that to Galloy counter mode or GCM. Again, GCM is considered to be more secure than CBC, just purely from a cryptography standpoint. I couldn't see if we had anyone on from South Korea. If we do, 19C supports a South Korean algorithm called SEED, S-E-E-D. Korean government has recommended desupporting that algorithm, and so we followed suit. That algorithm is gone from 26 AI. Same thing with Russian Federation Ghost. There's some political things with the Russian Federation, and so we don't support the Russian Federation algorithms anymore. Okay. We made similar changes to DBMS crypto. We updated the algorithms that we support, including, and this can be very important, I couldn't see if we had anyone on from China, but we added support for SM2, SM3, and SM4, the Chinese government mandated algorithms. We also made changes to our transport layer security stack, and we moved from supporting TLS 1.2 to supporting TLS 1.3. TLS 1.3 is the newest version of the transport layer security standard. It has a lot of advantages over the older versions. We also took the opportunity to de-support TLS 1.1 and 1.0. So those are gone now In 19C, we left them in for for backwards compatibility, but no one should be using those anymore. They're really insecure. We also simplified the TLS configuration. On the client side, we now allow you to either use a client-side wallet, or if you're just doing one-way TLS, not if you're doing a mutual TLS, but one-way TLS where the server has a certificate and the client does it, you can use the operating system certificate store. And what this means is working with a database that is using TLS is much, much easier. You probably won't be too surprised to find out that Autonomous Database uses TLS by default. And, it's really nice to be able to hook up to Autonomous Database really quickly without having to worry about wallets. Okay. If any of you are working with NATO or Five Eyes countries or organizations that are kind of following those standards, there is a Federal Information Processing Standard, number 140, that sets out how cryptography has to be handled for the US government. There are a lot of non-US organizations that use this same standard because it is kind of a NATO standard, and it's also, like I said, used in the Five Eyes. Prior to 26AI, that FIPS standard was implemented with 3 different parameters. You did something in your SQLnet.aura, you did something in your FIPS.aura, and you did something in your database. There was a database parameter for it as well. Starting with 26AI, there's now a single parameter, FIPS 140. It's a database parameter, and that applies everywhere. So you don't have to go set up FIPS in 3 different places. There's just one place, and it's all covered at the same time. Okay. We made changes to auditing in 26AI. One of the big changes we did was we allow column level auditing. So this is kind of the next iteration of an older feature that we introduced back in Oracle 8.0 called fine-grained auditing. That is now moved into the unified auditing family. And speaking of unified auditing, we de-supported the old legacy audit facility, the one that we introduced in Oracle 7. And unified auditing is now the default auditing mechanism. And for new Oracle databases, it is the only audit mechanism. Okay. Prior to 26AI, you could use both unified audit or the legacy facility. With 26AI, only the legacy audit, only the unified audit facility. Again, everything has subtle nuances. If you take a 19C database that is not using unified audit and you upgrade that database to 26AI, that upgraded database will continue to respect those old Oracle 7 audit commands. It'll continue to perform the audit for you. You just can't change them. So you can't add new policies or alter existing legacy audit policies. All you can do is no audit them and then redo them later on in unified audit. That's kind of it for auditing. Okay, again, those are all features that were introduced in the 23AI lifetime. And the reason I felt like I could include them is because we announced 26AI for commodity hardware this year. So let's look at things that were really introduced in 2025 that you didn't have even if you were on 23AI in 2024. We'll start with authentication. And one of the big ones is near and dear to my heart because this is my own product, and this is multi-factor authentication for local database accounts. This is way cooler than it sounds. Now, Oracle Database has supported multi-factor authentication since Oracle 7.2, when we introduced support for radius authentication. But up until July of this year, I'm already in 2026 in my head, but up until July of this year, when we released that release update, that multi-factor authentication was always handled externally, and it required changes on the client, changes on the database. It was very fragile. Any of you that ever set it up know that there's, your you're always kind of fiddling with it because things will break, a new version will come out. There's just always some challenges there. Now what we do is we take something that we all have, password authentication, and we add a second factor to it. And the way that second factor works is you try to log into the database. And I apologize for the flow in this diagram. I did the best I could, but if you follow the number one line, client sends a username and password verifier to the database. The database says, oh, look, this user is configured for multi-factor authentication. And the database sends a request to the authentication system. Today, we support two authentication systems. One of them is our own Oracle Cloud IAM. The other is Cisco Duo. We hope to add more in the future, but this is what we support today. That external authentication system sends its request for approval to the appropriate authenticator app. Now, your database client, you've entered your username and password, and it looks like it's hanging, okay? It's just sitting there waiting. That authenticator app, you bring it up on your phone, you click, oh, somebody wants to log into my database. Allow, you click allow, and when you click allow, you're able to, the authenticator app sends that the approval is granted back to the service sends multi-factor approval complete to the database sends login successful to the client, and you proceed on. Really, really cool. And the brilliant thing is here, we get multi-factor authentication with 0 client changes. So this is just hugely important. So if you get a chance, do play with this feature. This one was so important. We did backport this to 19C. So everyone picked this up in 2025. There's another one that we haven't talked a lot about, but we're still kind of working it out. And this is certificate authentication by thumbprint. Many organizations use smart cards. These are like identifier cards, like a badge that'll have built into the card a certificate, almost like a credit card has a certificate built into it. And you can use that certificate to authenticate to the database. But there is a challenge with that. Suppose you lose your badge and you go get a new badge reissued. Your name on the certificate is still you. So there's now 2 tokens that are out there, your old badge and your new badge, both of which could log you into the database. Well, this is an area that some of our customers challenged us to improve on, because they wanted to say, instead of just identifying database users by the subject of the certificate, we actually want to tie that authentication down to a precise certificate. So if someone lost their badge and got a new one, we can make it work only with the new badge and not the old badge. Now, yes, you could do that if you were maintaining a certificate revocation list. If any of you are certificate junkies, you know this is true. But if you're a certificate type person, you know that maintaining a CRL is a real pain and it slows things down a lot. Well, so we put our heads together and we came up with the concept of authenticating users by the thumbprint of the certificate instead of just the subject name. And so the thumbprint isn't a value that's stored in the certificate. It is a hash that is made of the certificate's public key. And so when you lose your badge and get a new badge and you get a new certificate, the subject name may stay the same, but the public key, that's a new public key. So you can tie this to your actual badge using this thumbprint. And the syntax I show here, alter user Joe identified externally as subject name with thumbprint, and then the hash of the public key. You would use Aura PKI to get that hash, by the way, so is one way to get it. I didn't show this syntax, but we also have given you the ability to authenticate with just the thumbprint. I like doing subject name and thumbprint. Theoretically, you should never have a collision on a public key because it's just really unlikely to have a collision. But certainly you would the chances of a collision of a hash of a public key tied to the same subject name is really, really low. So kind of belt and suspenders approach. Currently, this requires a one-off patch, and you'll see the patch number here on your screen. We are working to get this built into a release update, and that should happen sometime sometime more mid next year. So not in the January release update, maybe the April if we can get that in, But you can do this now if you have the need. All you have to do is request a merge patch for the patch number you see on the screen. Okay. From an encryption standpoint, one of the big things that those of us who care about cryptography have been scared about for years is quantum computers. And if you dabble in this field, it's unlikely you haven't seen a blog or an article about, oh my gosh, the end of the world is coming. Quantum computers are getting to be more and more powerful. And sometime in the future, and that sometime in the future is always in the future. It's been in the future for 10 years now, but the future is getting closer every day. Sometime in the future, TLS is no longer going to be able to resist quantum computing, and all of our encrypted network traffic is going to be readable. Okay. I'm happy to tell you that it's still sometime in the future, but the future is getting closer and closer. And there are attackers that are out there that are capturing encrypted traffic now and storing it with the expectation that sometime in the not too distant future, as quantum computers continue to mature, they will be able to decrypt that traffic. So, what have we done to fix this? Starting with the October release update, we introduced a new form of key exchange to our TLS stack. And what we've done is we've given you the choice. You can use the old key exchange mechanism, elliptical curve, Diffie-Hellman ephemeral, ECDHE, or you can use the new key exchange mechanism, which is module lattice key encapsulation mechanism, MLKEM. Fortunately, if you're going to configure that in your SQLnet.org, it's either EC or MLKEM. You don't have to spell out all of this stuff. And what this is it gives you quantum safe or supposedly quantum safe key exchange, which will protect you against these harvest now, decrypt later attacks. This, by the way, was one of the primary drivers of us changing from AES 128 to AES 256 for our defaults. AES 256 is considered to be quantum safe. AES 128 and 192 were not considered to be quantum safe. So this is here. In the January release update, I've got another change coming. We'll talk more about that in January, I hope. But for now, if you've got the October release update running and you're running 26AI, you do have this capability to begin combating this harvest now, decrypt later attacks. Okay. Data safe cloud service for database security. It is always changing, and 2025 was no exception to that. We continue to expand our footprint. So as Oracle was being deployed more and more in a multi-cloud environment, Amazon Web Services, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, DataSafe kind of traveled with it. We even support Amazon RDS. That includes Active Data Guard on RDS. We introduced Exascale. DataSafe supports Exascale, as well as all those places that it already supported before. Basically, anywhere you're running an Oracle database, and I don't care if that is Enterprise Edition or Standard Edition, DataSafe can be made to work with it. Okay, but we didn't stop there. We introduced a new concept, actually two new concepts. One of them is called target groups, which is just what it sounds like. You can take databases and put them into arbitrary groups. So maybe you've got these 5 databases and they're financial services, and maybe these 5 databases are, I don't know, human capital management, and these 2 databases are customer management. You can group them by criteria. Maybe these are DPDPA, subject to DPDPA, so I group them under that. These are PCI databases, so I group them under that. The other thing we introduced, in addition to grouping databases, is attribute sets. This group of users, database users, or this group of IP addresses, or this group of programs. And the idea is you can take these groups, these attribute sets and target groups, and you can use them for policy management. So I can set a consistent audit retention policy, for example, across an entire group of databases. I can set a consistent set of audit policies across entire groups of databases. Speaking of audit policies, we also introduced a template, and I'm sorry, not audit policies. I'll come back to audit policies in a bit. Hang on, did I just pass them up? Nope, I didn't. I'll come back. I got my slides out of order. I don't know how I managed to do that. So not speaking of grouping at all, but this is just kind of a cool thing. We introduced security assessment templates. Prior to this new feature, which we introduced back in August, your security assessment was you would do an entire assessment for the database and you would get all of these findings, maybe some of which you had mitigated, some of which you did not apply to your database. We were still detecting them, but they were for your environment something you considered to be a false positive. Now you get to select the checks that are relevant to your policy. And just because we think something is a finding doesn't mean necessarily that it's a finding in your environment. We give you some predefined templates for those that are based upon different standards and our own best practices. And you can apply these templates to different target database groups. Okay? You can review compliance at the group level. And the idea here is DataSafe is really getting to be mainstream. It's been around for, I guess, 5 years now. And we have customers with tens of thousands of databases in DataSafe. And so managing that many databases, without target groups was a real challenge. We let you customize your assessment reports. We gave you some new capabilities around user assessments. So you get, remember I said, I wish that no one used passwords anymore, but we know people do. One challenge with passwords, especially for service accounts, is they expire, and then whatever's at the other end of that service account, the application or the batch process or whatever, stops working. So we wanted to give you a way to easily tell as you had passwords that were coming up on expiration in DataSafe. So there's a new graph that does that. These users are going to have their passwords expire within 30 days. These are good for another 90 days. Easy way to see these, okay? These are already expired. For data discovery, again, we give you groups so you can group together different data formats. Remember, we've got, I think, 180 odd different formats that we search for when we're doing data discovery, and you can create your own custom data formats. You can group those together. So these are what I want to look for in my financial databases. These are what I want to look for in my customer databases. And it makes easier to manage at scale. Speaking of sensitive data types, like I said, we've got 180, 187, something like that, different types of sensitive data that we look for in DataSafe. But I don't care if I had 1,000 in there. I guarantee you I would not have at least one type of data that you consider too sensitive that we don't have in our library. And so DataSafe has always allowed you to create custom data types. And it's actually pretty easy. You can create like an existing one, which is how I usually do it because I'm not very good at regular expressions, or you can create your own just using a regular expression. But when you created them, there was a challenge. They were isolated to the DataSafe instance that they were created in. And so if you have, maybe you're operating in multiple regions and each region has its own DataSafe, or maybe you have, even within a single region, you have your production and your development environments. There was no way to move those sensitive types between different DataSafe instances. So you had to go in and recreate them manually, which in addition to be a pain and a lot of extra work, is also a good way to introduce error. Now you can export your custom data types and import them into another DataSafe. Much, much, much easier to work with. Manoj had mentioned that a lot of you use Audit Vault Database Firewall, and those of you that do have seen over the past year or so, Audit Vault and Database Firewall has had some major changes come to it. And these kind of mirror what you see happening in DataSafe. We have improved the usability of Audit Vault and Database Firewall, just like we did in DataSafe. Global sets of attributes, predefined audit policies. We've added in some cool new capabilities, like the ability to monitor local and bequeath connections. This is really important, especially in 19C, less important in 23 AI. Better alert policy conditions, audit insights. There's just a lot of things built into Audit Vault from a usability. Including SQL Firewall support, of course. That came last year. We've made operational enhancements that make it more robust. One of my favorite features is agent auto restart. I've had this happen to me several times where I have an agent that has, for some reason, stopped. Maybe someone bounced the server and forgot to start the agent. Maybe someone purposely shut it down. But for whatever reason, the agent is down, and now Audit Vault is not collecting from that database. And I have to notice that it stopped collecting. And yes, we added in alerts and all that, and that happened a while ago, but I still have to take an action to resume collection. With auto restart, Audit Vault says, hey, the agent's gone. It tries to ping the agent and restart it. It tries to ping the agent and restart it. And I think it tries 5 or 6 times over a period of several days before it decides, it needs to yell for help. But great new way to make the system a little bit more robust. And we're always expanding the platform. So, when 26 AI came out, we added support for 26 AI, new flavors of Autonomous, Exascale, SQL Server has new versions, Postgres has new versions. We're always adding in new versions to it. Okay? Where we're taking Audit Vault is kind of from being what it's always been. And if you think about Audit Vault, back in Oracle 10, when we introduced it, it was only audit collection. So that's all it did. Okay. Then right around the Oracle 10 to Oracle 11 timeframe, we added in Database Firewall, and it moved from being Audit Vault to Audit Vault and Database Firewall. And a couple of years ago, we introduced security assessment into Audit Vault and Database Firewall, and then user assessment. This one was new this year. And sensitive data discovery was new this year. And unified policy management across these. Now, unified policy management is kind of coming, but we're starting to see it already with some of these default templates. Our goal with Audit Vault and Database Firewall is to turn this into basically your alternative to DataSafe if you don't want to use a cloud service. You can use DataSafe in the cloud, or you can use DataSafe Cloud Service for an on-premises database. Or if you want to have that control of having your own system where you have direct access to the underlying repository and the heterogeneous nature of it, DataSafe is Oracle database only, then you can use Audit Vault and Database Firewall. No Oracle presentation should ever happen without someone saying the magic words AI, so I'll say them now. Coming soon, you will see AI beginning to make its way into Audit Vault and Database Firewall. And so you'll see an AI-powered security advisor and alert policy assistant. Those will be the first instances of Audit Vault and Database Firewall having Gen AI. Okay. 25. In Key Vault 2110, we added in a small change to a feature that we introduced in 2024. And many of us think of Key Vault in terms of transparent data encryption. That's probably the primary use case for it. But in 2024, we added in the ability for Key Vault to manage SSH keys. And the idea here is, just like you don't want your TDE keys sitting on the same server as the database because someone could steal those keys, you may not want your SSH keys sitting out there on the same server that you're using to authenticate into, or on your client workstation where you're using your private key to get into a server. So we introduced this feature in 2024 that allowed Key Vault to be the Key Vault for SSH keys as well as TDE keys or encryption keys. This really expanded the use cases for Key Vault, and it's like anything, it starts slow and it's picking up steam. But our initial implementation of this only worked on Linux, and a lot of DBAs connect to their Linux servers from a Windows workstation. So in 2025, in this one, 21.10, which was early in 2025, we added Windows Workstation to that SSH key governance. Another thing we did that I'd been asking for a while is Raheel and Peter and the team implemented something called an implementation accelerator. And this is the idea of pre-built integrations for other things to use Key Vault. Key Vault's a general purpose key management system. One of the first things that they did was they created an implementation accelerator for DBMS crypto. Now, DBMS crypto is great. I mean, the idea of PL/SQL packages doing encryption, decryption operations, and other cryptography has been around since the Oracle Obfuscation Toolkit. But both Obfuscation Toolkit and DBMS Crypto have always had one major challenge, and that is the key management is up to you. You know, you're writing a program to do some encryption or decryption or hashing or something like that. It's up to you to handle those keys. This implementation accelerator lets DBMS Crypto use Key Vault the same way TDE does. So your keys don't have to be built into your program, which means they're not so easy to steal. Okay. There's other thing. We gave you more implementation flexibility in terms of ports and always expanding platforms out. Later in 2025, we had Key Vault version 21.11 come out. That introduced Key Vault into the Exadata cloud service dedicated provisioning flow. So we'd already done this for some of the other provisioning flows, Autonomous Database, Exadata Cloud at Customer. This was just a new place to introduce it because there are people who want to use a cloud service and a cloud key management system. And if that's the case, you could use your cloud service and you could use OCI Vault. But there are people who don't want their encryption keys sitting in the same cloud that their encrypted data is in. And for those people, they can use Key Vault, where they have more control over their keys than putting it into a cloud service. There's a couple of other new things in 21.11, but this idea of choice is probably one of the bigger ones. Okay. Again, not really in 2025. At the very end of 2024, December, again, I think this was like December 21st, if I remember the date right, we released Enterprise Manager 24 AI. And because of the date, almost the entire world ignored it until they came back off of the winter break in January. But we did get it out in 24, hence the name 24 AI. And with that came a new version of data masking and subsetting. So if you have upgraded to Enterprise Manager 24 AI, then you have this new version of data masking and subsetting with cleaner workflows, better UI, things like that. But we didn't stop there. Truly into 2025 now, Enterprise Manager releases new versions of plugins, and the data masking and subsetting is contained within the database plugin. There were two database plugin releases, and each of those had changes to data masking and subsetting. One of the big ones is in the first update to the plugin for 24 AI, we expanded the number of sensitive data types to basically match DataSafe and Audit Vault. So there's now 187 different types of sensitive data you can search for using data masking and subsetting. This is really important, even if you don't use data masking and subsetting, because the application data model functionality, which is part of the data masking and subsetting screens in Enterprise Manager, is included with just about every other database security feature. If you have advanced security, then you can use Enterprise Manager Sensitive Data Discovery. If you have Database Vault, you can use Enterprise Manager Sensitive Data Discovery. If you have Audit Vault and Database Firewall, you could use Enterprise Manager Sensitive Data Discovery. I don't know why you would, since we built that into Audit Vault and Database Firewall last year. But remember, this capability has been around for a long time. So at least for Vault Database Firewall, it's there, but you wouldn't use it anymore. But either way, this ability to search more sensitive data types is really valuable to us. At the same time, we expanded the masking format library. We added in 44 new masking formats, as you can see here on screen, bringing data masking and subsetting up to parity with DataSafe. Okay. The second management pack that came out, we allowed auto assignment of masking formats. Again, just like you see in DataSafe. So you go out and do sensitive data discovery and you want to move to the next step of creating a masking template. That sensitive data that you discovered that was an email, it will default to use the email masking format. That sensitive data discovery that looks like it's an ADHAR number, it'll use the ADHAR number masking format. So the idea here is that you're able to move from discovery to actually performing masking much more quickly and with less human error. Speaking of errors, we added in the ability to restart your masking jobs from the failed step. That includes pre and post masking scripts. So this just makes masking a little bit more robust, a little bit easier to use. Whoosh. Okay. That is what was new in 2025. Manoj, thank you again for letting me do this. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come talk to your people here in APAC. And for all of you, if you haven't already started playing with 26 AI, January is your time. Look for it on eDiscovery. You'll be able to download the install packages for Linux the same day we do the release update. So look forward to seeing you in January for office hours when I hope to come talk to you about something else we're doing for quantum encryption. That's assuming Manoj doesn't get tired of me and say he's going to do it himself.
Definitely.
All
So
right.
thank you
I'll
so
turn it
much,
back over to you,
Russ.
sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Russ. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand. I can unmute you. If you just want to, we'll just give it a few minutes.
Oh,
I think I got it. Yeah. So just
you got it.
like whatever we discussed about, right? All Oracle capabilities, including database security. We have live labs, right? Which will help you spin up instances for a couple of hours. You can extend those instances and you can, try out everything you hear about Oracle, all the capabilities. We keep refreshing those labs. So, take advantage of this, free to use live environment. This is we have two series of Astrum, one in US time. This is a new series in APAC time. And, those who want to know more, there's this ebook, which is available here, and we'll refresh it in sometime in February. Please take advantage of that. Do I have anything? Okay. Okay, yeah, I think you answered. Okay, great. So
There was one question that came in on Q&A. Can I address it real quick?
yes, sure.
So Bala asked a really good question around 23 AI or 26 AI because 23 AI is dead. 26 AI for IBM platform. And I did what I always do, and this is why I wanted to say something, is I answered it in the context of AIX. Because when you say IBM platform, my mind immediately goes to, okay, we're talking about AIX on Power. And there, that MOS note, PR 1360, does mention AIX will be later in 2026. We don't have a specific RU assigned to it yet, but we've got something. But I should have gone back to Bala and said, are you talking about AIX? Or are you talking about Linux on S390X? Or are you talking about, this is a really weird one, Linux on PowerPC, because that's another IBM platform. So those second two, Z-Linux, S390X, and Linux on PowerPC, we don't have scheduled yet, and we're trying to evaluate the use of Linux on PowerPC. We think there's not a lot of call for that yet, and IBM can't really tell us. So Bala, if you weren't talking about AIX, if you could follow up your question just with real quick, just put something in Q&A and let us know, I'd appreciate it. If it was AIX, then that's fine. He says thanks. So it was AIX. Thanks. I just wanted to make sure I'd answered it properly.
Okay, thank you everyone. Let's looking forward to see you in the next month's series. Yeah.